What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and today I'm here to rank the games in Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. Now, this is the second of the 3 special Crash Bandicoot videos. If you are watching this is a video that counts for the giveaway. If you leave a comment in the comment section below, you'll be entered for a chance to win the giveaway, so long as you follow the rest of the rules. We have an entire video dedicated to the rules and what you have to do and how the giveaway is given out, so make sure you check that out. So in this video, I want to do, again, something kind of special. You know, last video, I basically had a discussion of how I thought the Crash Bandicoot games were difficult. It was kind of a different thing. Normally I would do like a tips and tricks or beginner's guide or something along those lines, but for these games I want to have more or less discussions about them. And so for this video, I want to talk about the games, not in a review standpoint. Again, the review comes out tomorrow. But I want to more or less discuss what I think of each game and kind of put them in a ranking order right now. So this is without me beating the full games. But again, this comes with a grain of salt in the fact that, you know, these aren't new games. Nick and I talked about that when we previewed Crash Bandicoot, that it's a weird way to start gaming previews. Even Minecraft is a weird way to start it too, because it's a game that's already come out. Crash literally already came out. These games are built from the ground up, basically. They are complete remasters of Crash Bandicoot, but they're not completely fresh new games. It's not like we've never seen them. A lot of these levels are very, very familiar. So, the games. Dead last. And now, here's the thing. I really like this collection. I love this trilogy. I love Crash Bandicoot. I loved it when I was younger, and I love it now, even if it is insanely difficult. The game that I think is the weakest is Crash 1. Now, here's the thing. Crash 1 is an insanely hard game. I think Crash 1 is easily the hardest. And what I think Crash 1 struggles with is its pacing. It'll have some levels where it'll just be way too difficult, and then some levels where it's a cakewalk. And while, now here's the thing, none of these games are bad. That's the thing. These games are not bad. I'm not saying that Crash 1 is a bad game. Crash Bandicoot is a great game, but it's just the weakest of the 3. You know, they all follow the same kind of strategy with what kinds of levels there are, right? So you got the basic platforming, you know, defeat the enemies, get your way to the end of the level. You have the running away from a boulder or a running animal or whatever kind of level, and then you have the riding levels where you ride a panda or you ride a whatever, like anything, a speeder bike. In Crash 3, obviously, there's car races, Crash Warped. So there's those 3 things. So they don't really differentiate that much between the games, but overall, Crash 1, I'd say, is the least inventive with some of the levels, some of the things that you're doing. And again, now this is the first game when Naughty Dog made these games. This was the first game in this, you know, this franchise. So obviously Crash 1 is going to have some issues, and it does show. Crash 1 is not the most well-paced game out there. It struggles with things like that, but overall it's a ton of fun. Like, you know, it really is fun. I think that they get more elaborate as they go. And now here's the thing. Next up, ranking number 2, I'd say is Crash Warped, or Crash Bandicoot 3. Weirdly enough, you know, the third game, it has a lot of polish. You can tell that. You can tell from, like, the story cutscene in the beginning. Now, all of the story cutscenes in the beginning, by the way, are really fun. They're really cool. Like, I really like them. Cortex is awesome. You know, the way they set up the games, literally the way they start them, is really, really fun and cool. And I remember them. Like, I remember seeing that back when I played it when I was very, very young. So it's cool to see that again. And while Crash 3 is a byproduct of more polishment, and it does, like, obviously these games look, overall, they look exactly the same. There doesn't look to be any difference because they remastered all of them. Obviously, you know, Crash 3 looked the best. It had, you know, they had all the lessons they learned from the first game, and what I think with Crash 3, which is kind of weird, is it's actually pretty easy. It's not, okay, now let me make this clear. It's not, like, insanely easy. It's a hard game. All of these games are difficult. But Crash 1 will make you want to crash your head into a boulder. Crash 3 has, I'd maybe say more, it's got more balanced levels. Like, it's a more fun, I think that's what puts it over Crash 1, is that the thing with Crash 1 is it can get so frustratingly difficult that it makes the game not fun, and obviously difficult games need to watch out for that. You don't want to make it too difficult to stop people from playing. Crash 3 at times actually is too easy. The boss battles especially the first one, it's not the hardest thing in the world. It's actually extremely easy. Now, I do remember playing it, so maybe that's an additional kind of positive on my end, is I do remember playing it, so maybe I remember something back when I played it that's helping me now. But Crash 3 is more polished. Obviously, the levels are more, I'd say they're more intricate. You see that they're, in a way, they're longer, but they have more branching paths you can take, and everything just looks like it has a finer tune on it. Now, again, in terms of looking wise, they all look the same. But you knew that Crash 3, obviously, at the time, looked better than 1 and 2. But you can still see the polish is there, that they recognize that over 1 and 2 just by playing it. And then finally, at number 1, I'd say is Crash 2. Second game in this franchise is really the best game. It's just purely good. It has some balancing issues, a lot like Crash 1, but it's not as bad as Crash 1, and it's not as easy as Crash 3, which in a way is a slight turnoff of Crash 3, which is kind of weird, but Crash 2 does it all actually really, really well. I think it has, in my opinion, it has some of the most iconic, most memorable levels. It has some of the most memorable bosses. It has some of the most memorable enemy types. It really is kind of the golden standard of Crash Bandicoot. These games are extremely good, but Crash 2 just, I feel like, you know, they're coming, obviously at the time, Naughty Dog's coming back from doing Crash 1, and this is the improvement that you would expect them to make. And Crash 3, in ways, is an improvement on Crash 2, just not in some ways, obviously, it succeeds, and in sometimes, you know, they take steps backward. You know, people thought they did that with Uncharted as well. You know, Uncharted 1 had some flaws in it, but it was a phenomenal game. Uncharted 2 fixed a lot of it, and then Uncharted 3 fixed even more, and in my opinion was a better game, but some people thought that Uncharted 2 was a better game. And that's really, I think, where this comes. I think Crash 2 and Crash 3 are pretty close, and I think Crash 3 is very enjoyable because it's a more sit back, relax, really enjoy the game kind of thing, whereas Crash 2 is a really good blend of challenge, of really nice levels, of, you know, the stories and all of them, you know, they're pretty much, you know, there's nothing that really stands out between them, but the levels, the enemies, the nostalgia, Crash 2 does it right. I think, you know, Crash 2 and Crash 3 have the slide. Crash 1 doesn't have the slide, which when you play Crash 2 and Crash 3 and then you go back and you play Crash 1, especially in this trilogy, it feels very weird that you can't do that. I don't really understand why, but so these games obviously all have things that are different from each other, and it does feel like you're playing one very long game because they do all look the same, just because of, you know, again, they're building it, but all the levels, obviously, like, you're playing a lot of different levels, a lot of different worlds, a lot of different enemies throughout the 3 games, and they're all fantastic. This is a fantastic trilogy. I'll obviously have more in-depth review tomorrow, but ranking-wise, coming in at last is Crash 1, coming in at second is Crash 3, Crash Warped, and coming in at first is Crash 2. That is my ranking. Let me know what you guys think of Crash Bandicoot in general. What's your ranking from what you remember, or if you've played this game so far? Let me know what you would rank the games. Make sure you comment in the comment section below again for that, and something along those lines would be fine for a comment to qualify for the giveaway. But also just, you know, anything you want to talk about Crash Bandicoot related, leave in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to Podcast Now, our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and share this video, and I will see you guys for tomorrow's Crash Bandicoot Sane Trilogy review.